Hi guys, That College Rabbit here, and today we'll be reviewing Everywhere in the Beginning of Nowhere, a 8-hour fan project made by one person, the Carebear. Originally starting this project when he was 14 and completing on February 6, 2021, the remastered version that has garnered over 1 million views came out on April 6, 2021. Since then, he's been in Memory Fest 2021, the Forgotten Orchestra, collaborating on a completely new series, and with others to create memorable meme projects such as Everywhere Shut the Fuck Up. The most iconic song from The Shining, Midnight, the Stars, and You, is a primary A1, and then goes on to a different A2. One that is more happy and cheerful. The stellar B-side that I could talk about for hours on end. But the only downside is that Memories of Peace is twice done on here. And which I absolutely despise. I think it's a really bad song, and I don't know if it was an artistic choice, but it certainly makes me frown every time I actually get to hear it. And that was supposed to also be the E8, which we'll get to later. But I only have to take points off for Wedding of the Painted Doll, which is used a few more times. Stage 2 is different, yet the same when comparing the original to this one. It starts out with a slowed and thinned down march with a lot of static, and like it's going through and it's trying to turn itself in. It then goes on to a substitute for Misplaced in Time as Time Blurs with Gloomy Sunday as its sample. Amazing. Bob Allen's version of Midnight, the Stars, and You is great and has more color, which I also enjoy. The only downside, it then dips down with C5, C6, and D1 all being kind of out of place and they don't fit. But it's then made up by one of the best songs and the best pieces out of the entire project, and everything. I would honestly say it's one of the best D-sides out there right now. And it's called The Mind's Last Glory Day with So Tired by Russ Morgan. Absolutely stellar. It's so beautiful, it's sad, it's bittersweet, and I love it, but it's then thrown off the rails by Ancient Court Whisperings. So I had to take almost 6 points off for that. Legit ruined my fucking mood. But the only other thing I have to say about this is that the ending is amazing. And I would actually show this to someone who is working on a fan project and needs an example or a reference to Stage 2. I would say I would give this, because it is so on point that it could necessarily be a replacement and you wouldn't even know. So Stage 3 starts off with a large bombastic sample of Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, and which I can imagine like a dancer dancing and having to repeat the same thing over and over and over again and losing their interest before they fall into E2. And this time it's not a really stupid fucking sample. I really love this one. I like it because mostly it's the same sample and I can actually, follow what it's supposed to be. And E4 isn't special either, but the short tracks of E3 and E5 are both stellar. I really love E3 and Sten Canton's interlude. It is great. I could listen to that all day. If you gave me an hour-long playlist, I would definitely take it. E6, in my opinion, is better than E6 and Everywhere at the End of Time. But E7 is too long, E8 is A5, which makes me kind of resentful. F1 is kind of bad, but F2 and F3 are being remarkable homages to the originals, makes up for that. Everything on F4 is immaculate, but I could have done without F5, F6, and those two are just not good at all. I think they don't work here. But F8 works, and I don't have any problems with it, but F7 is very interesting to me, because I don't know how to feel about it. I have no strong feelings about F7. But going into the next half, before post-awareness, I would describe what has happened so far as a bright woman being faded into nothing but incoherent battle of lies. And the only problem that I have is that there are so many tropes here that are on everywhere at the end of time that it's basically a clone. It's like an alternate universe version of Everywhere at the End of Time. And there's no interesting concepts besides, well, the next stage, which is weird, and then Postmortem. And I could talk about Postmortem, but I will later. Stage 4 is completely different from the original and most of the 6-stage projects, whereas this is a transition between the 3 and 4 rather than a separate stage on its own. It's supposed to be something to connect them. So there's a slow and decreasing part that has a little bit of a loop, and that's what the G side is. It's looping post-awareness samples, but it's like a 30-second clip that you don't necessarily notice unless you're sitting there and analyzing it for a while. If you're just going off the feels, you can maybe just like pass it off as some droning with a little bit of a sample once or twice here. H1 sounds like a proto version of what we hear in H2 and going onwards. And H2 is a post-awareness confusion stage in which it's okay. I could deal without it. It's most of this stage is dry. I don't like it, but I like the album cover. I like the cover for this one because it's so weird and it's so out of place from everything else we've seen. Stage 5 is the stage 4 of the group, and you can tell that there's more drawn-out progression and more evolution between each side, because most of it starts out slow, and then it goes in, does its thing, and then fades out immediately at the end, which I'll talk about that at the end when I give my final thoughts. The I1 of this stage has a lot of weird sections, and there's chaotic, then calm, chaotic, and calm. The first time it's done great within those transitions. Second time not so much. Second time even worse. I skim past the stage kind of, but J1 is a slight variation of H1, except there's an actual decent hell sirens, I would say, because I still have nightmares thinking about those hell sirens. And then the aftermath is just absolutely creepy as well. And I give it props. But K1, far too long. I think temporary bliss states in general are just far too long for their own good. Because if you have something interesting, or something a little bit different than just the same sample multiple times over for like 24 minutes, yeah, I'll probably pay attention. But here, I paid attention for 5 minutes and then just kind of went on and started role-playing online. L1 brought the entire stage down 5 notches. Terrible ear-raping center. There was static that doesn't make sense. It just went and then it disappeared. There was a cool little melody that was distorted underneath in the center, but you couldn't hear it, and it just brought the entire stage down, and I hated it. It was the worst part of this stage, and the only part that actually was good about this was the final section of a 22-minute long side. Stage 6 had a similar problem that I did with Natmos, in that it was chaotic, but it wasn't... I don't know. No, that's not what it was. Stage 6 had similar problems that I did with Nowhere at the Millennium of Space, and that it lacked the chaos that it was looking for. It didn't sound like a huge collapse. And the fact that Love Sweet Old Song, which is the C1 sample of Everywhere at the End of Time, was the clarity state, I almost threw off my headphones and threw my microphone across the room. And also Goodnight My Beautiful was one of them as well, which just absolutely angered me. I I couldn't deal with it, but at least the visuals were good, and I liked them. Especially the mandolin section at the end. That was a very nice touch, and I liked the fact that it wasn't like overdone. There was not a whole lot of distortion. And another thing about this entire project is that it has visuals, and the visuals actually work here, instead of it being like, oh, it's hopped in and then it hops out. There was also sections of Hell Sirens that didn't make sense. It was just kind of uninteresting. It just takes it down even further, and it just kind of bored me after a while. While also still being kind of similar to Everywhere at the End of Time. And I know I'm comparing this back to Everywhere at the End of Time, but if I did it to anything else, it wouldn't be fair. I feel like if you do something different enough, such as, Ad Gamotli or Everywhere in the Dead of the Planet even had a decent little concept or two that I did enjoy. But here, I can only compare it to Everywhere at the End of Time and Nowhere at the Millennium of Space, because those were the ones that were the big ones at the time. And they're the ones that might have had an inspiration on the Carebear. I don't have a lot of contact with him anymore. But we actually get some decent things coming back up. It actually saves, the one that actually saved it was Q1, because I could actually hear that defeated and ominous tone that it looked for at this point. And the cutscene actually scares me. Even to this day, I've watched the entire thing over and over and over again. It still scares me. It scared me during the premiere, and it scares me now. But going into Stage 7, I don't really write down much for Stage 7 because, you're just listening, what's their vibe, how strong is it? Is it too strong for what it's trying to achieve right now? Is it too coherent right now? It's all of those, deciding factors when it comes to these. And I think that the droning actually kind of works here up until S1. I think in S1, it's too loud. It's kind of coherent. I get it's like a final collapse, but it should be like a collapse that is silent and incoherent. So it's like something that's like, oh, I'm getting something, and then no. And it just goes down from there. It goes to T1, which it slowly dies down. And then U1 has that final, is there going to be an ending? Is there going to be an ending at all? And then it lifts up, and the actual screen goes brighter. And it gives you a nice light image with a nice luscious major chord. And then it cuts off, and the terminal lucidity we have here, which I don't really count it as a terminal lucidity. The terminal lucidity here is, it's been a long, long time. And it's not even the ending. Because there are visuals there, it's all going there, it's looking like, oh, there's a happy ending. But then you hear the heartbeat monitor actually just making him die, and it's reflected in the visuals as well. And then it cuts to a black screen, and then what I assume is Gaussian blurred, just swirls and shit, with some really large, luscious choir. And it is the perfect ending, and it could have ended there, but then they added postmortem, and which I refuse to listen to because I believe that postmortem has not been achieved at a good rate enough to actually be worth your while. I'm not sitting through chord after chord after chord of organs just to get something out of it, because there is essentially nothing. So my final thoughts. I think that there could be a lot more to be done.
And I've heard rumors of there being an actual redux of things. To be completely honest, I feel like this doesn't need a remaster. I think it's fine as it is. It's a good example. It's a testament to the product where it's in, and it doesn't have a lot of problems that Natmos did that needed a redux. One thing I do have gripes about is the transitions between post-awareness, and none of them flow together because it's just a complete fade out with nothing else. If it was like an abrupt stop, like, yeah, I could understand that if there's like a small pause, but there isn't. It's a abrupt fade out. It's just a small fade out, and then it goes into the next track, which is kind of lame. If I'm going to be honest, if you're going to have something, you at least want to make it like crossfade or something. This works as an alternative to Everywhere at the End of Time, in which it does its job, but it has not a real lot of concepts because, you know, it's a pioneer as well. Both Nowhere at the Millennium of Space and Everywhere in the Beginning of Nowhere are the two pioneers and the two major ones that I'm covering right now. And for the case of Everywhere in the Beginning of Nowhere, I will give this a 81 out of 100, and that will put that in the A tier. And I hope you guys are enjoying my content, because I'm going to be moving pretty soon. The next time you'll see me, I will be in a college dorm. Yep, I'm going to college. What a shocker. So I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.